This presentation about ethical eating and the discourse practice gap in top restaurants in Peru has been prepared by Mario Pasco Dalla Porta, professor of the Department of Management Science at the Pontifical Catholic University of Peru. The presentation is organized into 7 sections. The first 3 sections introduce the topic, the analytical framework, and the methodological design. The next 3 sections examine the main ethical concerns in the sector, the discourse of restaurants' representatives, and the corresponding contrasting evidence. The presentation ends with a reflection on the gap found. In the last decade, Peru has become a major gastronomic destination. The gastronomic offer has substantially increased across the country, and an increasing number of restaurants are among the top in Latin America and worldwide. In this context, many chefs have acquired great salience as business entrepreneurs and even as opinion leaders. Over the last decade, the gastronomic boom has escalated the demand for farm animal products and the exploitation of marine resources. However, the chain supply in the sector primarily benefits urban intermediaries and not the impoverished rural producers. In addition, within the restaurants, the majority of operative staff faces precarious working conditions. There is an increasing concern about ethical problems in the restaurant industry, including topics such as food contamination, animal cruelty, labor malpractices, and asymmetric relationships in the supply chain. Accordingly, several authors have advocated a defetishization of the industry so to make visible those problems, and a variety of new approaches emphasize the need to transform the industry according to ethical standards. In this context, according to Liu et al., ethical eating involves the preference for natural, healthy, fair-traded, and humanely treated animal food, and is often connected with social equality affairs. There are 4 key dimensions to consider. The first dimension involves the use of organic food, local produce, and green cooking processes. The second dimension requires animal welfare considerations, so to avoid overexploitation of marine resources and cruel practices in farms and slaughterhouses. The third dimension calls for fair terms of trade along the supply chain. Finally, the last dimension refers to good labor practices within the restaurants. The purpose of this research is to examine the discourse practice gap regarding ethical eating in the top restaurants in the country. The ethical premise that guides this research is the duty of restaurateurs and chefs as sectoral and opinion leaders to adopt the ethical eating approach considering the severity of problems that affect the industry. The study adopted a multi-method approach including discourse and documentary analysis of relevant sectoral information, as well as structured observation of restaurants' websites and menus. The sample included the top 44 restaurants in the country, according to the reports of the Latin America's 50 Best Restaurants and the Summum Awards in Peru as of 2018. The ethical concerns in the sector can be grouped into 4 topics. Regarding food healthiness, there are several reports about the indiscriminate use of pesticides in traditional agriculture and the significant presence of virus and bacteria in farm animals. There are also studies documenting animal cruelty in farms and slaughterhouses, and predatory practices in the extraction of marine resources. In the sector, the supply chain is characterized by asymmetric economic relationships, in which restaurants and intermediaries obtain the lion's share to the detriment of local producers. Moreover, farmers and fishers face highly precarious working conditions. Something similar occurs in most restaurants workers, who are frequently exposed to low wages, irregular work schedules, and scarce employment stability. The majority of chefs and restaurateurs in the top restaurants analyzed showed a discursive commitment to four ethical topics. The environmental sustainability discourse includes references to the Peruvian biodiversity, the respect of ingredients seasonality, the need of enhancing product traceability, and the sectoral responsibility to address environmental impacts. The discourse on sociocultural integration considers the Peruvian gastronomy as a positive source of cultural diversity, recognition and socialization of different cooking traditions, and construction of a long-term cohesive citizenry. The discourse related to the good work environment emphasizes a more horizontal and participatory form of organization, as well as better working conditions for restaurants' employees. Finally, the fair trade discourse highlights the shortening of the supply chain, the alliance with local communities, and fair terms of trade with producers. However, only 8 out of 38 restaurants, that is 21%, reported ethical initiatives, including alliances with producers and socio-environmental projects. There are several valuable initiatives that promote complex and sustainable relationships with sectoral stakeholders, including Matter Initiative, Solidary Pantry, Solidary Gastronomy, and the Pachacutec Foundation. It is worth noting that one restaurant also offered an ethical hotline to report complaints. In addition, only 16 out of 29 restaurants, that is 42%, included ethical ingredients in their menus. Although many restaurants included catch of the day options, very few reported using organic fruits and vegetables or animal welfare products. None of these cases reported any of the corresponding certifications in the supply chain, except one restaurant that reported using certified wood. The majority of restaurants' menus include either marine species over which there are alerts regarding their sustainability, or animals that have been deprived of their lifetime cycle at an even earlier age than is usual in the industry. In addition, many of them use imported animal products, which generates a carbon footprint. Finally, interviews to restaurateurs and investigative reports on some of these top restaurants provide evidence of several labor malpractices, including underpaid and even unpaid work, tips appropriation, and employees mistreatment. In conclusion, the increasing demand for green products has enabled a virtuous circle that benefits both customers and restaurateurs. Among the restaurants analyzed, there are several valuable initiatives that incorporate an ethical approach based on the recognition and promotion of biological, social, and cultural diversity and sustainability. However, in most cases, there is a predominant neoliberal discourse with an eco-friendly and socially committed rhetoric that disregards the structural problems and sectoral asymmetries that benefit the few, to wit, restaurateurs and chefs, but affect the many, to wit, local producers, workers, and the non-human entities. These mechanisms of distance, deceit, and denial at work in this sector need to be elucidated and deconstructed.